Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Marty Ross, and it's another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. This is a webinar where we're going to talk about Lyme disease. Bear with me a minute. I'm trying to get this setup adjusted here. So I actually just moved, so I'm visiting with you from my kitchen tonight. I don't quite have my office set up here yet, so it's a little bit of a different lighting setup. I've got stuff bouncing all over the place here, so just bear with me. I may have to adjust things a little bit further. It's good to be here with you all, and I see that there are a number of familiar names that I see on my message board, and there's a number of new people as well too. So to both groups, welcome back, or welcome here. To those of you that are returning, I'm glad to see that you keep coming back because you must be getting some value from this. For those of you that are new here, there's a couple ways to participate. First, you can actually listen to the questions and actually read them. If you're in the live version, you'll actually be able to see the questions on your screen, and you can see how I answer those. And there's some good learning that takes place from doing that each time. The other thing you do is go bold on your first visit and ask me a question. And the way that you do that is on the right-hand side of the screen at the bottom, there is a chat box, and you can write your question to me using that chat box, okay? The thing I ask is don't hit the enter key until your whole question is written. If you try using your enter key to create paragraphs, it actually sends separate questions to me. And that really gets to be kind of a nightmare for me to manage from my standpoint. So I appreciate if you don't hit that enter key until everything is written out. Run it as just one big, long run-on paragraph. That's okay, but not too long. Because in this format, shorter questions work best, okay? I am creating a recording of tonight's webinar, and my anticipation is that I will have it edited and a synopsis written for you and get it out to you somewhere between 9 to 9:30 a.m. Austin, Texas time, Central Standard Time. And in that email, you'll also have a link to sign up for the next series of webinars that will begin next month. I'm actually not going to take a day off this time. I'll be just going right into the next one. We'll be doing 3 webinars in a row in September, so you'll be able to sign up for those tomorrow because I'll create the ability to do that as part of that email that I send out to you too. All right. So I think that pretty much takes care of the business side of things here. Let's go and get started. We'll take a first question here. Hello, Cesar. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. My daughter has been treating for Bartonella for 5 months now using doxyfluconazole and cinnamon clove oregano. She's taking also many supplements. The doctor decided to discontinue the doxy and fluconazole because she's been without symptoms for 2 months already. What would be the supplement that she should be given for her after that, if any? So, it's Cesar, it's very possible you can cure Bartonella. It's very possible in many people you can cure Babesia. It's very possible in many people you can cure Borrelia or Lyme. So what I like to do is get people well, symptom-free for at least 2 months, and then stop the antibiotics, all right? Just like your doctor is doing. So if she really has no symptoms, then I think it is appropriate to stop, and you don't need to be on any further antibiotics at this point, whether that's herbal or prescription antibiotics. Now, there is always a small chance that every germ is not gone and that there could be a relapse. There's a small chance, all right? So if she were to start getting symptomatic again, then you would need to be back in contact with your doctor and see about getting back on treatment again. The one thing I want to let you know is if you do get into a relapse, generally they're easier to treat than the first time around. You're not going all the way back into the hole again. Your daughter, when her health wouldn't be going all the way back into the hole again, okay? So just keep that in mind. The other thing is if I do get people that relapse, when they do relapse, then the next time I get them to a good place, I usually will leave them on some herbal antibiotics to help control the germs. But I don't want you doing that, so I'm not going to tell you how to do that because I think it's okay to stop. I know it's a scary thing when people get to the point of being able to stop antibiotics. It's scary to go without those antibiotics is the thing that got you well, and no one wants to go back into that hole again. But yeah, a lot of people get well from this thing. So give it a shot, okay? Now, the things that I do have people continue, though, is you need to still do good yeast prevention for up to a year. Let me tell you what I mean by that. So having been on herbal and prescription antibiotics, either one of those can disrupt the good bacteria that line your intestines. And if that bacteria is disrupted, it makes it easier for too many yeast in the intestines to overgrow, basically. And so that can go on for a long time. So what I like people to do is for at least 6 months, continue taking probiotics, all right? And in addition, be on an herbal antifungal or anti-yeast agent, I should say, or be on nystatin. So nystatin would be to do 2 500,000 international unit pills twice a day, or for an herbal formula, you could look at something like the brand called Karuna, that's Karuna. The product is called Capri Plus, that has caprylic acid in it, garlic, and some oregano oil in it. And that would be a couple pills twice a day. That's an option. Another product is something by Integrative Therapeutics, which is called Phytostan. That has some powder caprylic acid, rosemary oil, thyme oil in it, some endolinic acid in it as well too. And that would also be a couple pills twice a day. So I usually try to do the probiotics and also the herbal or nystatin anti-yeast medications for 6 months together, okay? Then after 6 months, you can probably stop the nystatin and the Capri Plus or the Phytostan. And at that point, you still want to stay on probiotics for another 6 months, all right? So you need to repair the gut after having been through all this, or at least when I say you, I mean anyone that is stopping treatment and has been on herbal or prescription antibiotics, all right? So those are the recommendations I have for you. And again, I'll say, I know everyone thinks I need to be on something still to kill the germs. Well, if the germs are gone, you don't need to be on anything. And there's actually a good reason to believe that they're gone. And keep in mind, the longer you're on antibiotics without needing to be, you run greater risk of injuring the gut microbiome. Now, having said that, when you have active infections, the risk of injuring the microbiome are overridden by the risk of having these infections like Lyme and Borrelia and Babesia. And so at that point, it's worth the risk of being on antibiotics, but not when those germs are gone. Okay. All right. So good luck to you, Cesar, and good luck to your daughter. All right, let me just do a brief check here to make sure we're not getting any complaints that people can't hear me. It looks like everyone's hearing me. No one's complaining, at least. So let's go ahead and do the next question here. This is from Doug. Hi, Doug. Hi, Dr. Ross. You recently stated that when retesting for mold toxicity, you didn't have your patients stop the binder for a period of time before taking their urine sample. I thought I heard you mention that some practitioners have their patients off the binder for some time before retesting out of concern that staying on the binder will produce a result that shows lower toxin levels than they would be shown by the test. Can you explain what their theory is? If the binder is grabbing toxins, wouldn't that cause more toxins to appear in the urine sample? I may have this wrong. In any event, you rightly stated that it probably wouldn't impact the results much either way, given the short time that the patient is off the binder. Thank you for all the amazing help. So keep in mind, no, I don't agree with the practitioners that actually have people stop their binders before doing the testing. When you're on a binder, the binder is grabbing hold of toxins that have gotten into the intestines from the liver, moving them there, and binds them up so that they won't get reabsorbed back into your bloodstream, okay? But it's lowering levels in your bloodstream. It's not removing everything. Hopefully at some point it does, all right? So if you still have mold toxicity, even though there are some bound up in your intestines on the binders, and those toxins bound on the binder stay in the intestines, they don't get into your urine because they're bound by a binder in the intestines, so they don't get reabsorbed back so that you can pee them out. What gets into your urine is some of the toxins that are in your blood are peed out as well, although your kidneys are not a great way of removing mold toxins, but they still will get into the urine. And that's what you're measuring in the urine, is the stuff that's from the blood that is not being bound up in the intestines with your binder, okay? So for some reason, they think that if you're on a binder, that those toxins that are bound up in the intestines should, for some reason, they think that, I don't know what they think, but it doesn't matter. What you really want to know is at some point in time, how much is in your blood, and an indirect way of measuring that is by looking at what's in your urine, okay? So to me, it doesn't matter if you've got some bound up in the intestines, because they're bound in the intestines. They're not getting reabsorbed back into you again, all right? So that's what my rationale is. Let's see here. I think I answered your question there. So anyhow, yeah, good luck to you, Doug. Thank you. Hello, Jay. Do any of the tetracycline class antibiotics either cause or help alleviate neuropathy? So neuropathy, again, is injury to the nerves, and that can give you numbness, it can give you tingling, sometimes it can give you nerve pain, okay? All right. In terms of tetracyclines, the only one that may have some involvement in neuropathy is minocycline, but I'll come to that in a minute, okay? But in general, the class does not lead to neuropathy. It may actually improve neuropathy by getting germs under control that lead to neuropathy. And in addition, it may improve neuropathy by being anti-inflammatory. So if your nerves are inflamed and that's giving you some of the neuropathy symptoms, any of the antibiotics, including the tetracyclines, have an anti-inflammatory capability separate from their ability to kill germs, all right? Now, minocycline is a little bit different. I just want to make a comment about it. So minocycline is extremely fat soluble, meaning it gets into fatty tissues pretty easily, okay? And so it may get absorbed more easily into the brain than tetracycline and doxycycline, although they get good brain absorption too. But because it's fat soluble, sometimes it concentrates around the nerves in your brain and the fatty tissues around the nerves, and can become an irritant to the nerves in your brain, okay? Usually what that will show up is as dizziness more than anything. Sometimes it can lead to depression and psychological symptoms. And I guess in theory, it might result in some nerve dysfunction leading to numbness further out, like in your hands or your legs, although there are chances that happening would probably be very remote. In terms of how often would I need to remove somebody from a minocycline because they had neurologic symptoms that they think came from being on it, it's probably 5% or less of the time. And I've never done it for neuropathy. I've done it for dizziness. I've done it for confusion, all right? I've done it for psychiatric symptoms got worse, probably from that becoming irritating to the nerves, basically. All right. So anyhow, thanks for that question. Keep in mind also, if your minocycline is becoming an irritant to your nerves, when you stop it, because it's a fat soluble, it may still take about 2 weeks to 4 weeks before that irritation from it to your nerves going away. It takes time for things that are stored in fatty tissues to get out of you. Okay? All right. Thanks for that question. Hello, Francis. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thank you for all you do. You're welcome. Can you speak about severe insomnia issues involving Bartonella and Lyme, and about possible causes and treatment? I literally do not fall asleep normally. I could go days without sleep, and I'm not bipolar. Polysomnograms rule out apnea. Saliva tests showed higher cortisol levels at night. The only time I have fallen asleep without sleep meds is when I'm coming down with a virus of some sort. Doctors are puzzled. I'm currently on Seroquel for insomnia, but it's been a massive weight gainer. Any ideas? Thanks. So So when you have tick-borne infections like Bartonella and Lyme, or when you have mold toxicity, or when you have too many yeast living in your intestines, all of those conditions cause your white blood cells to manufacture cytokines. Okay, and I think you may have heard me mention that before. Cytokines are good and bad. On the good side, cytokines are released by white blood cells to cause more white blood cells to be made, to help the white blood cells fight the invader better, if you will, and also to help the draw the white blood cells to where the problem is. Okay, that's what the purpose of cytokines is. All right. However, in people with tick-borne illnesses or mold toxicity or too many yeast living in the intestines, often they develop too many cytokines because the immune system's not doing a good job, but it keeps trying harder and harder. Eventually, it pumps out too many cytokines. And too many cytokines give you most of what we call the Lyme symptoms, okay? So it gives you body pain, gives you confusion, gives you fatigue, interferes with how your hormonal systems work. And in addition, those cytokines interfere with the sleep centers in the brain. So it's the cytokines interacting abnormally with the sleep centers in the brain, okay? So some things to do for that are try to lower cytokines, and you do that by treating your infections and by removing your mold toxins if they're there. And in addition, taking some specific supplements to lower those cytokines. So I like using, for instance, curcumin, liposomal curcumin. The product for that is a product by Thorne, which is called, that I like, is a product by Thorne called curcumin phytosome. The reason I like using liposomal curcumin rather than regular curcumin and rather than turmeric is it's better absorbed, okay? And so what curcumin does is it gets inside of your white blood cells and limits their cytokine production. And so for people that are having a whole host of Lyme symptoms, including insomnia, I want them to be taking at least 500 milligrams 3 times a day of curcumin phytosome by Thorne. That's the product I recommend for that, all right? In addition, another thing that can help lower cytokines is to be on glutathione. So glutathione is a very powerful antioxidant that is made in every one of our cells, and its purpose is to repair damage, all right? And as an antioxidant, it also lowers oxidizing agents, and it's increased oxidizing agents that tell white blood cells to make cytokines. So lowering those oxidation agents that tell white blood cells to make cytokines decreases the signal that they get telling them to make cytokines. All right, so being on liposomal glutathione, again, liposomal makes it better absorbed, just like with the curcumin. The product I like for that is a product made by Research Nutritionals. It's got great data showing that it's got good absorption. And that product is called Tri-Fortify Watermelon or Tri-Fortify Orange. Again, it's by Research Nutritionals. And I try to be doing a teaspoon a day, okay? All right, now, until you get your infections under control, your sleep centers are going to be disturbed, unfortunately. So in addition, there's some other things that you need to do. You need to do good sleep hygiene things, okay? So for instance, try to turn off all your blue light an hour or 2 hours before you go to bed. That means don't look at your cell phone with a regular light on. Now, your iPhone actually has a way of adjusting it so you get more yellow than blue light, but any blue light device, like your computer screen, your TVs, those are stimulating, okay? So you wanna try to avoid that, all right? Second thing, good sleep hygiene involves is not taking alcohol before bed or even in the evening. Although that may make you sleepy at first, alcohol disturbs and makes sleep worse. You're going to wind up getting early morning awakening from being on alcohol. So I advise against alcohol. Sometimes people with insomnia also are very sensitive to caffeine. And so it may be that if you are having that coffee to get up in the morning, which is fine, you may need to stop having your coffee or your tea by 1 or so in the afternoon. I mean, you'll have to figure out if that's one of your factors as well, too. I strongly advise people to sleep in a dark and cool room, okay? Sleeping in a warm environment sometimes makes sleep worse. And I strongly advise don't doing work in your bed. Save your bed for sleep. and for sexual activity if that's what you like to do. But I don't advise working in there. You need to save your room, create an environment in your room that is more comfortable for sleeping, basically. Okay. Now, if you do all that and you're lowering cytokines with your glutathione and your curcumin phytosome, and you're still having sleep disturbances, then it's time to break out the drugs. And unfortunately, that is just what you got to do in the world of Lyme. Okay. And because you got to get sleep, you need to get sleep because that also lowers cytokines, believe it or not. And getting sleep helps your immune system work better. And so if it takes drugs, sometimes you just got to do drugs. If it takes herbal sleep medicines, you got to do that. All right. Now, Seroquel is kind of, for me, was always a later resort medication, which I would use if other medications were not working. All right. So, but there are other options you could look at besides Seroquel. And I suspect if your doctors put you on Seroquel for sleep, they probably tried all the other ones. But what I'm going to do here, I don't want to go through all the herbal and prescription sleep medicines, but I'm going to show you a couple articles you can look at to see, did you try some of these other things? Okay. But don't forget the sleep hygiene, and don't forget doing things to lower cytokines. Those are really critical in terms of helping to get your sleep improved as well too. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and do a quick screen share here. All right, so this is my online information site. And so here at this tab right here that I'm hovering over, my online Lyme guide, is where you're going to find most of the critical information here. There is a section I have on sleep right there. Okay, click on that. And you're going to see I talk about, there's an article on the basic steps. That's a lot of what I just told you about, which is more this, what I call sleep hygiene steps. Okay. There's an article I have here on the natural medicines. There's also one on the prescription medicines. All right. So ones that you can use for prescription medicine, there's the way I break those down is I generally talk about the ones that do a better job getting you to sleep, and there's ones that do a better job keeping you asleep. All right. The ones that do a good job getting you asleep are your classic sleep medicines like Ambien, Sonata, Lunesta, even Xanax can be helpful. All right. And then the ones that tend to do a better job keeping you out are Lyrica, gabapentin, trazodone, Klonopin, Lamictal, and Seroquel. All right. So I don't know if you tried any of these other ones, because some of these other ones tend not to lead to the weight gain that Seroquel does. All right. All right. Get back here again. Anyhow, Francis, it is a difficult situation you find yourself in, and I hope that gives you some help. Okay. All right. Hello, Kaylin. Let's see here. Hi, Dr. Ross. I recently just got my IGeneX immunoblot, IgG, and IgM tests back, and the results are as follows. IgM test result negative 23, positive 31, indeterminate 34, 39, 41, indeterminate 93. Wait, I may not read that. Negative 23, positive 31, indeterminate 34, negative 39, negative 41, indeterminate 93. The IgG results negative 18, negative 23, negative 28, negative 30, positive 31, negative 34, 39, negative 41, positive 48, negative 58. Indeterminate. I was exposed to a tick in May of 2022, and I was exposed to a tick in May of 2022 and did not have any doxycycline or treatment following this, and started experiencing symptoms of what I think is Lyme disease. After multiple visits with my doctor and seeing these results, she is still confident that Lyme is not causing these symptoms and is refusing doxycycline. She tested me for lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, both negative, and all blood work is within normal range. In your opinion, is this positive enough for treatment? I wanted to do the Ross Lyme protocol combination with herbs and doxycycline, but the doctor is refusing to prescribe doxy. Herbs seem like my only option. After reading your Lyme protocol, this is what I have come up with. Let's see. Let me answer your first question, and I see you have a second part, I believe. Hold on here just a minute. Yeah, actually, let me just look at the second part here. So L-theanine for sleep, mito food plan, curcumin for cytokine control, ashwagandha for hormones, a good multivitamin, glutathione for detox, atoba and cat's claw, liposomal cinnamon clove, oregano combination. Sorry, it's such a long-winded question. I appreciate any advice you have regarding this, as I feel you are the one and only true opinion I can trust. My doctor referred me to an infectious disease specialist, but I am not very optimistic about it and feel that tackling this on my own is my best option at this point. Thank you again for all you do. Truly a blessing. All right. So, and thank you for your positive comments there to me too. I appreciate that. So, Caitlin, let me just kind of cover a number of things here. Let me pull your first question up. All right. So, whenever, actually, let me move this. So, I know you've tested negative for Lyme. That doesn't necessarily mean you don't have one of the other tick-borne infections, all right? So I'm just going to make that as an overall comment. So the on the East Coast of the United States, tick studies show, these are from years ago, but tick studies show that about 70% of ticks that carry Lyme carry at least one, I think maybe it's 80% of ticks, I believe, that carry Lyme carry at least one other co-infection, and around 60% carry at least two co-infections, okay? I haven't seen any studies that tell us independently how many ticks carry a Bartonella or a Babesia, for instance, that don't have Lyme, all right? So it would really help me to know what your symptoms are, because your symptoms would help me understand what possible infections may be here, all right? So for instance, it is true that when somebody has Lyme, the symptoms can involve being fatigued, hurting all over, insomnia, brain fog, joint pain, muscle pains. Okay, those are kind of the common problems, all right? But if you have some of those but not all of those, and you want to start considering, do you have other infections? So symptoms that might suggest an infection called Babesia, which is a blood parasite, I would want to look at those. And so, for instance, symptoms that suggest Babesia include night sweats, feeling like you can't get enough air, called air hunger, might involve severe fatigue. You might get lightheaded easily on standing. You might get periods of racing or skipping of your heart, and you might pass out easily as well too. All right, so those are things that make us wonder, could there be Babesia there? All right, and then there's another bacteria that people can tend to get called Bartonella. And Bartonella can lead to some of the fatigue and a lot of cognitive dysfunction. But other things that make you wonder about Bartonella are pain on the balls of the feet, a lot of neurologic symptoms like numbness and tremors and shakes and shooting pains. Those are things that make you wonder a bit about Bartonella. Psychiatric symptoms like always present anxiety, depression. Those are things that make you wonder about Bartonella, right? And the problem is, I don't have enough information here to say whether you might have one of those, okay? So those are some things to consider. And then finally, 25% or 20% of the time that somebody has active Lyme, when they initially get tested, the testing is negative. And that is because there's enough immune suppression going on that the immune system isn't able to make enough antibodies, all right? I would say your testing technically is negative, all right? That positive 31 on IgM may be significant, but you would want to have another band that's positive. And what I call the significant bands are 21-23, here you're calling it 23, 31, 34, 39, 41, and a band called 83-93. I think they're reporting it as 93 here, yeah. So if you had had another one of those 6 that I just said, I might say, yeah, that's probably positive. But with a 31 alone, I wouldn't call that positive, okay? There are times, so there's four things we consider when we're diagnosing Borrelia, the Lyme infection. Okay, one is what's the chances you got it? All right, so having had a tick bite is a risk, and having a tick bite, if you grew up from New England, is a big risk because a lot of ticks that carry Lyme out there. I think studies say that 95% of the ticks in New Jersey carry Lyme, for instance. Okay, if your tick bite was in the upper Midwest, in Wisconsin and Minnesota, very high risk. There's a lot of Lyme in those ticks up there. All right. So, but keep in mind, you can get Lyme anywhere, but you have a higher chance in ticks up in those regions of the world and on the West Coast out in California and some ways up into Seattle as well too. All right. So you consider what are the risks. All right. So tick bite is a risk. All right. And then the second thing you consider is are there symptoms that look like Lyme disease? And I just went through a number of those with you. All right. Third thing we look at is do you have any physical exam findings? And then the fourth thing we look at is do you have any supportive testing? What I would say at this point, I don't necessarily consider this a supportive test. I don't know enough about your symptoms to say whether you've got enough symptoms to say Lyme disease. All right. If you have reviewed your symptoms, and one way to do that is look at a good source to see if you have enough symptoms and risk factors that look like Lyme is to do Dr. Horowitz in his book called Why Can't I Get Better has a questionnaire in there called the MSIDS questionnaire. And if you score high enough on it, that can mean that you have enough symptoms to suggest Lyme. Okay, so let's say you do the MSIDS questionnaire from Horowitz, that comes back high, and you did have that tick bite. In that kind of a situation, often what I would do is put you on a course of either herbal or prescription antibiotics and see over 6 to 9 months, do you get better? And at the end of 6 to 9 months, I might consider repeating the immunoblot to see if your immunoblot has become positive as your immune system starts working better. Okay, so if you have enough symptoms and one way to see if you have enough symptoms would be do the Horowitz MSIDS questionnaire. Okay, if that comes back positive and with that history of tick bite, then you got enough there to say, yeah, you should try a course of herbal or prescription antibiotics. Okay. The regimen that you have looked at here of L-theanine to get sleep, working with an Otoba and a cat's claw, and using a cinnamon clove oregano is a great place to start. All right. So the Otoba and the cat's claw are good at getting at cyst Lyme, intracellular Lyme, and spirochete Lyme. Those are the three forms of the germ. Cat's claw has some ability to get at one of the hibernating growth states of the germ. All right. But liposomal cinnamon clove oregano is great at getting at hibernating, or we call that persister Lyme, and liposomal cinnamon clove oregano, or the ingredients in there, can get at spirochete Lyme as well too. So that's an excellent starting place for you if you have enough symptoms that look like Lyme. Okay, all right. So again, 4 things to consider Lyme diagnosis is risk of getting it. Sounds like you got a risk. Do you have enough symptoms? Maybe you do. I can't tell because you didn't write any of it down for me. All right. That's why I'm telling you, look at the Horowitz questionnaire. Do you have a supportive test? No, what I would say at this point is you don't. And then the last point is, do you have any physical symptoms? And I don't know what your physical symptoms are. Okay. But if there is enough symptoms, and if there is, knowing you had that positive tick bite, in those situations, I might go ahead and just do 6 to 9 month trial of an herbal or prescription antibiotic regimen. Also, if you follow what I was talking about, I said, look to see whether you have enough symptoms to suggest Bartonella or whether you have enough symptoms to suggest Babesia. If you do, you might want to see if you can get your doctor to do the immunoblot for just Babesia, or the immunoblot from IGeneX for Bartonella as well too. Okay, all right. So let me do a quick screen share here because I have a whole article on this too, kind of a longer article, but it'll help you look at it. So let's see. There we go. All right, so take a look. There is a section here I have called How to Diagnose. And take a look at my article called How to Diagnose Chronic Lyme Disease More Than a Test, okay? And in here, I talk about Horowitz's MSIDS questionnaire. I talk through all those things I was just mentioning to you. For a list of symptoms that would make you think of Bartonella, read my article called How to Diagnose Bartonella and Chronic Lyme Disease. And for a list of symptoms that would make you wonder if you have Babesia, take a look at How to Diagnose Babesia and Chronic Lyme Disease as well, too. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. Thanks for the question. Hello, Matthias. Let's see here. Hello, Dr. Ross. Let's see. My reverse T3 is almost double as high as the upper range. It makes me very tired. Some doctors say you can clear the T3 receptors by taking T3 pills. If I take T3 pills, cytomel, for some time, a dosage high enough to stop the thyroid from producing its own T4 and T3, would the thyroid bounce back once I taper down, or would I be stuck on pills the rest of my life? Lowering inflammation so less reverse T3 is made would be the ideal solution, but the thing that works the best, Japanese knotweed, gives me Raynaud symptoms, so it's a no-go. Okay, so let's talk about thyroid and what reverse T3 means, et cetera, okay? So your thyroid gland sits here in the neck, all right? And it makes two types of thyroid hormone. One is called T4, and the other thyroid hormone it makes is called T3, all right? And there's a couple major differences in those. First of all, T4 has 4 iodine particles in it, and T3 has 3 iodine particles in it. That's how we come up with T4 and T3, all right? In addition, what is active in your tissues, the things that makes your cells have energy, makes your cells run, is T3, all right? But 90% of around 90% of what the thyroid gland makes is T4, and all that T4 it makes and the T3 go out into your tissues, get absorbed into the cells, and in the cells, the T4 is converted into T3, and it's the T3 that the cells use to run correctly, okay? Now, the difficulty is when we measure T4 and T3, we're measuring what's in your blood. We actually don't have a way of knowing for sure what the T3 levels are inside your cells. So what goes on with T3 in your blood may not fully reflect what's happening with T3 levels in your cells, okay? So what's reverse T3? So what does that have to do with things, okay? So your T4 has an option of actually getting into the cells and becoming T3, all right? The other thing it can do is it can become reverse T3, all right? So the purpose of reverse T3 is basically the body, and so what happens with reverse T3 is the body is saying, we need to rest. We need to hibernate so we can recover. And so it starts making reverse T3 instead of T3. It's purposely trying to slow you down, give you fatigue, lower your body temperatures to kind of put you in a hibernation state, if you will, so you can heal. Now it doesn't mean it works that way, but that's probably what it's doing, all right? So what's important here is that you get enough T3 in your cells though. So what we call this condition when you have high reverse T3 is you have a condition which is known as peripheral hypothyroidism. It means at the level of your tissues, all that T4 is not being turned into T3. So at your level of your tissues, there's not enough T3, okay? The other type of hypothyroidism is one that I call central hypothyroidism. And in central hypothyroidism, your thyroid gland here, it's controlled by a part of your brain called the hypothalamus and pituitary. And the hypothalamus and pituitary its job is to correctly assess, are you making enough thyroid? And if you aren't making enough thyroid, then it's supposed to cause your thyroid to make more. And the way it causes your thyroid to make more is by making a lot of thyroid stimulating hormone, okay? So a sign of having a condition of which is called central hypothyroidism is that your brain and your brain, I'm sorry, in central hypothyroidism, it's an interaction between the brain and your thyroid gland. And if your thyroid gland is not making enough thyroid, then your brain responds by making very high levels of TSH. At least that's what it's supposed to do, okay? Now, when you have chronic Lyme and chronic infections, all these cytokines you got running around make it so the hypothalamus and pituitary can't correctly interpret the environment. And so you may have low levels of T4 and you may have low levels of T3 in your blood, and the brain isn't responding by making enough TSH, all right? So that would be called more of a central hypothyroidism problem. And in that, you should have still normal reverse T3 levels, all right? So the thing you want to do when you have peripheral hypothyroidism with high reverse T3 is you want to take T3 so that it will get absorbed into the cells and will make the cells start working better, which will warm those cells up so all of your enzymes in the cells start working better and energy gets back to functioning normal. Once you do that, once the cells start correctly converting that T3, once they have enough T3 and they're functioning correctly, often the body's going to respond by converting T4 back into the T3 instead of converting it into reverse T3, all right? And you're not going to be permanently stuck on taking T3. It's more of a temporary fix to get things working correctly to make up for what your body isn't doing correctly. Okay, all right. That may all sound confusing, but anyhow, if you want to read an article I have about this, take a look at. I'll do a quick screen share here. So there is an article I have in the hormone section on thyroid testing and on peripheral hypothyroidism. So take a look at this article called Hypothyroidism, the Best Tests, Meds, and Vitamins, okay? And in here I talk about testing and I also talk about medications that you can use to help with this, all right? All right. Matthias, good luck to you. Hello, Deb. Hold on here just a minute. All right, let's see. My husband is almost 3 months out from bite, no antibiotics yet, because we thought it was a spider bite and then was diagnosed with mono when it was really reactive EBV. We now know from recent blood tests that he has Lyme and co-infections. So his bite was 3 months ago. Okay, so we now know from recent blood tests that he has Lyme and co-infections of Babesia, Bartonella, positive for mycoplasma pneumoniae, and reactivated EBV. He has just started with a DO that has him on cryptolepis, BLT, and several supplements for immune support, inflammation, and detox. Also, doctor says blood tests show he is chronic already. Should he also be on any antibiotics as well? No symptoms other than bad fever and few weeks after bite, and currently stiffness and a slight cough. I'm also worried that there aren't many symptoms yet because the infections are still just building since the bite was relatively really recent. Is that a possibility? And 3, treat all at once or an infection at a time. All right. So, and a number of things to talk about here. So I want to, so first of all, in terms of the antimicrobials that you're on, the cryptolepis is effective against Babesia. It's also effective against growing and persister Lyme and growing and persister Bartonella. The BLT has a number of antimicrobials in it that target Lyme and Bartonella. It does not have anything in it, though, that's going after Babesia. Okay, so just to let you know that. And so, he's targeting the Bartonella and Lyme from multiple angles because of the combination of herbs that are herbal antibiotics in the BLT and the cryptolepis. On the cryptolepis side, to be honest with you, for Babesia, cryptolepis by itself often is enough, okay? These days, when I treat somebody for Lyme and Bartonella, even if they've had it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, I generally start with the herbal antibiotics. Herbal antibiotics for Lyme, the Borrelia infection, can work about 85 to 90% of the time, which is the same chance I see of prescription antibiotics working, okay? Herbal antibiotic regimens for Bartonella work well about 70 to 75% of the time compared to any 2 prescription antibiotics you might go on at the same time for Bartonella, which tend to work about 80 to 85% of the time. So you got maybe a 10% difference there, but still you got pretty good odds with the herbal antibiotics, all right? And Babesia, I give the cryptolepis about an 80% chance of working. The prescriptions may work about 85% of the time. Now, the reason I suggest going herbal first is you got to keep in mind when you break out prescription antibiotics, they're going to have a harmful effect on your gut microbiome, your good bacteria that live in the intestines, all right? And over the years, and especially in the last, probably the last 3 or 4 years, there's been an exponential growth in science looking at the importance of the gut microbiome, all right? And so we know that the good bacteria and parasites and viruses in the gut are very important at regulating the immune system, your sleep, how your brain functions. Those are just some of them. Removing toxins, getting allergens out. All right, so it's really important stuff going on down there. And so my viewpoint is to use the least toxic thing possible with the hope that we can preserve the gut microbiome. And when it comes to prescription versus herbal antibiotics have a significantly less chance of disturbing the gut microbiome compared to prescription antibiotics. So you are correct in wondering, could prescription antibiotics give him a better chance? And I would say on the Lyme side, probably not. On the Bartonella Babesia, a little bit. But you have to weigh that out against the risk that you're doing to the gut and having longer term problems down the road. Okay, all right. So those are some things to consider there too, all right. Now, in terms of reactivated EBV and mycoplasma, I don't buy it. I'm not saying somebody didn't tell you that, just hear me out. I don't buy the concept that people have reactivation of these infections, EBV and also mycoplasma. And let me explain why, all right. So if we were to pull 100 healthy people off the street, we would find, I think the numbers are about 20 or 30% are going to have elevated antibodies against Epstein-Barr virus or against mycoplasma or against chlamydia pneumoniae or against cytomegalovirus or against human herpes virus type 6, not sexual herpes, not cold sore herpes, but it's a respiratory herpes, okay? So these are common infections in healthy people who make antibodies to keep their germs under control so that they don't bother them, all right? So if your doctor measured these antibodies and saw they were there, it doesn't prove those infections are active. It just means your immune system has been regulating those infections because we know they regulate them even in healthy people, all right? So we can cohabitate with Epstein-Barr virus and mycoplasma just like we cohabitate with germs on our skin, all right? Just finding antibodies doesn't mean they're active infections in you on those, all right? So I usually don't treat those. Even so, the BLT does have some herbal components in it that could go after mycoplasma, but I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to be worried about that one, okay? In terms of looking to say whether this is chronic, yeah, I mean, it's beyond the first month. So I will tell you, in the whole scheme of things, the people that have a harder time getting rid of this are if they wait a year or more to start treating. You have the best odds if you start treatment within the first month, but you still have great odds if you're within the first 3 months. So I just want to let you know that. I think the fact that you actually, relative to a lot of people, you caught this early. Okay, right? Let me make sure I answered everything here. Oh, I would treat the infections all at the same time, but I would not even worry about the mycoplasma, and I wouldn't worry about the EBV. I think those are background infections that are not causing disease, if you will. Okay, all right, all right, very good. Good luck to you. Good luck to your husband. So let me just do another quick screen share here. All right, so in terms of, take a look in my infection treatment plan section here. And there is a whole article I have about when you should treat for chronic viruses and why in most people you probably should not. And there's another one that's called Target Viruses, Mycoplasma, and Chlamydia and Lyme disease. Maybe not. And that's exactly all the information I was just telling you, which is these are just background noise in most people. This is stuff that healthy people live with, and probably your husband was living fine with these until, and probably still is living fine with them. They're probably not causing his problem. Okay. All right. Thanks for that question. Good luck to your husband. LG, I see. Hi, Dr. Ross. At what point in treating Lyme and BART would you suggest that a patient seek out low-dose immunotherapy? Can you please discuss the benefits of LDI and its modalities? Thank you, as always. So, low-dose, the theory behind, so low-dose immunotherapy was the craze, if you will. Oh gosh, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even longer now than that. All right. So there is a seasonality to Lyme disease, and that is about once a year, everyone rushes to try the newest, latest, shiniest thing. All right. And at that time, about 5 or 6 years ago, I think it's 5 or 6 years ago, LDI was the latest, newest, shiniest thing. All right. 2 years ago, the latest, shiniest thing was disulfiram, maybe 3 years ago. And many of us now have found it causes more problems than it's worth, and that the people that we all thought we were curing are not cured. And so it's fallen out of disfavor. And what I would say is most of these things that everyone rushes to, the latest shiny things, fall out of disfavor. And LDI has fallen out of disfavor for most of us, okay? But let's talk about in theory, what it's supposed to do. So LDI stands for low dose immunotherapy. And basically, what it uses is liquid with super diluted amounts of the germ that you're trying to treat. In fact, so dilute that the original molecules related to that infection are no longer in the liquid. And what you've got is what is known as homeopathic or energetic doses of those germs. Okay. And the idea with any type of homeopathy, including LDI, is that the energy of whatever you're giving somebody is supposed to cause a healing effect. All right. So you may have heard of people that are homeopaths. All right. So they will give certain agents in an anxious person that is supposed to get rid of the person's anxiety, but they're not chemically active agents they're giving them. They're giving them super diluted substances of something that would cause anxiety, but in super diluted doses, the energetics can cause healing. That's the idea behind homeopathy. All right. So we all started trying LDI 6 and 7 years ago, and I used to mix the stuff up and give it to people myself too. And in the end, I think there were some people that really got sick on it. I mean, it actually did cause some significant reactions, but suggesting that maybe it was working. But on the whole, most of us just don't find benefit from it. And so I don't use it anymore. And so there are still some providers out there that try it, but I don't find it to be a beneficial way of working, to be honest with you. Okay. All right. Good luck to you on that. I'm sorry, I may not be the best person to talk to you about this, but it's one of those that everyone was jumping on the bandwagon, and now I would say 90% or more of us that tried it don't use it anymore in our practices. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Eileen. Let's say, hi, Dr. Ross. I tested positive for Lyme, mold toxicity, B6 toxicity, and EBV. My symptoms include neck pain, nerve pain in the right arm, feels like carpal tunnel, tremors, especially right hand and fingers, tremors right side of face, and nerve pain in the right frontal sinus, tremor left fingers, twitching, fasciculations in the calves, and nerve pain down back of legs. Legs and arms feel heavy and weak. I'm taking cat's claw, Otoba, cryptolepis, cinnamon clove oregano, nystatin, and oral and nasal, GI detox, probiotic, as well as curcumin, alpha-lipoic acid, glutathione, quercetin, BPC 157, lithium, ashwagandha, and low-dose naltrexone. The tremors and twitching and nerve pain are the most debilitating of my current symptoms. What do you think is the root cause, and what else can I take to quell these nerve symptoms while I heal? All right. So this is complicated, and to give you the best answer, I would need to really talk with you and examine you. Okay, I want to be quite candid about that. The things that I'm wondering about, given that you have it feels like carpal tunnel syndrome, and you have a lot of neck pain, and you've got a lot of neurologic symptoms, I wonder, and your doctors should have examined you and maybe even considered this, are you getting some pinching of the nerves up in your neck, either from a slip disc or some narrowing of the openings? Same with what's going on in your legs. So if you are actually treating and a lot of your symptoms are getting better, but your neurologic pain is not, you need to start considering, do you have an anatomical problem? Is there something squeezing on your nerves that's giving you a lot of the nerve pain? Okay, so that's my main thing to think about. And I can't say based on what you've told me here, and I can't say because I'm not examining you, but that would be something for you to consider. All right. Other than that, some things that can give a lot of these neurologic symptoms that you're having, I tend to think quite a bit about Bartonella. Your treatment at this point, and by neurologic, I mean the tremors, the pain, the numbness, the muscle fasciculations, all that makes me wonder of Bartonella. And your treatment for Bartonella, the cryptolepis can help Bartonella. The cinnamon clove oregano can help Bartonella, but I would consider adding another agent to help with Bartonella too. You might look at doing a Japanese knotweed. You could look at doing a houttenia. The knotweed also helps with Lyme, persistent and growing as well too. And if you do a knotweed to try to help target some of the Bartonella, I usually will work people up to about, I start at about a quarter teaspoon 3 times a day, and I might go to a half teaspoon 3 times a day on that. Okay. But again, the significance of your symptoms, if everything else seems to be getting better and they are not, the nerve symptoms, I would be looking at your neck. I might even consider imaging your low back, and I would examine you to see, do we need to do those kinds of things? Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Eileen. Hello, Mary. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thank you for taking my question. You're welcome. Let's see, how long do patients generally stay on Lumbrokinase, and how long does it take for them to see results initially? I'm considering it adding to my regimen, which is already targeting Babesia with Mepron and Zithromax. Thank you. So generally, if it is helping, you're probably going to see some Herx reaction when you start it, generally, okay? And if you do see a Herx reaction when you start it, I would remain on it the rest of your treatment, because that means that this idea of having a Babesia fibrin nest and it being something that's interfering with your treatment, the fact that you get killing of your germs causing a Herxheimer reaction means removing the fibrin in these fibrin Babesia nests actually does make a difference. It means you got them, okay? But if you don't get a Herx by trying to use the Lumbrokinase to get rid of fibrin in these fibrin Babesia nests that I've talked about before, if you don't get a Herx by adding in your Lumbrokinase, that doesn't mean it's not working. I would give it about 2 to 4 months and see if you start getting improvements. If you do, I would remain on it throughout the rest of your treatment. If not, by 2 to 4 months, then I would consider stopping it. Okay, all right. So everyone, what Mary's talking about, her question is about, is something called Babesia nest. And these nests, or fibrin nest, the nest of germs mixed in with your blood clotting protein, they're called fibrin nest. And they can occur with Babesia, they can occur with Bartonella, and if you happen to have both, they're both going to get weaved together into these nest of fibrin. And they stick themselves to your blood vessel walls, and it becomes very difficult for your immune system to get at the germs and for your antimicrobials to get at the germs, all right? So Lumbrokinase is an enzyme, a group of enzymes that comes from earthworms. Yep, we use earthworms here. And it breaks down the fibrin in these fibrin nest, which makes it easier for your antibiotics and your immune system to get at these germs. Okay, so that's why we use it. There's 2 major products out there that I use in my practice. One is a product by Allergy Research called Lumbrokinase, and then Canada RNA has a product called Boluke. That's Boluke, which is Lumbrokinase. All right. And the Boluke product is a 20 milligram pill. The Allergy Research is a 16 milligram pill. I think they're pretty interchangeable in terms of the results I see and have seen in my practice. And that's 1 pill twice a day is usually what I'll do. Having done this now for a while, when I've started people on twice a day, I saw significant Herxes. So generally, I will start at, or have been while I was still practicing, I would start at 1 pill a day. Okay, all right. Good luck to you, Mary. Hello, Joyce. I say, hi, Dr. Rose. Hope you can help. Let's see what we can do. Let's see. Diagnosed in 2001 with Lyme on doxy for 4 weeks. Told I was good to go. Over the following years, I had weird symptoms that would drive me to walk in to ER. Always told I was healthy as a horse. In 2016, very sick. I was blessed to land in an LLMD office who got me back on track and with short-term antibiotics, herbs, and Boluke. Since then, I moved to Arizona, unable to get proper medical help. I found you and have followed your suggestions. In July, we drove cross-country and back for 1 month, and I started having many Lyme symptoms. One night, we stopped in Amarillo, Texas, and got bitten alive by mosquitoes on a walk. When we got home, I felt terrible. Remembering it might also be yeast, I started a protocol which wreaked havoc on my stomach. I do the DGL and aloe as well as cat's claw, Atoba, and Hutania. A few months ago, I added Japanese knotweed and crypto. This past week, I hit a wall with chest pain, labored breathing, intermittent heat surges, and exhaustion. Where do I go from here? Am I taking too much? I need direction. I can't find a good doctor to save my life here. I've been to several and have spent thousands. None take insurance. All I want to do is IVs of herbs or ozone therapy running into tens of, all want to do IVs of herbs or ozone therapy running into tens of thousands. Most of us just holding it together and have only part-time jobs. Please help if you can. Thank you for all you do. So, Joyce, boy, this is hard. You've got a complicated picture, and I'm not going to be able to tease this out in a webinar, unfortunately. I wish I could. The thing, I know you've been in and out of the emergency room, but the chest pain with labored breathing, if you are somebody that is 50 years or older, I think you need to get your heart checked out to make sure that it is not part of your problem right now. Okay. Acutely, that you don't have black blood vessels or something like that going on. All right. But beyond that, it's really difficult for me to say what it is that you should be doing here. I don't have enough history here, and I don't get the benefit of talking with you more about your past as well too. So I'm not going to be able to help you here. If you, I know it's hard to find somebody in Arizona. Your next bet may be to look into a naturopathic doctor in California that treats Lyme in a similar fashion to what I do. She's down in San Diego. Her name is Nicola McFadzean. Actually, Ducharme McFadzean, I believe. Let me find it for you here. She got married, and I can't remember which one comes first now. I'm going to just look it up real quick. Just hold on here a second. Okay, so it's Nicola. It's Nicola McFadzean, which is McFadzean, Ducharme as her last name, Ducharme. Her practice is called Restore Medicine, and that's RESTORMEDICINE, and she's based out of San Diego. I know that may still be quite a drive for you, but she does work with both prescriptions. She works herbally, and she generally has a similar outlook to how I treat things as well too. So unfortunately, there are just times that trying to do this on your own and with advice from you over the internet, it's just not the best way to go. And so I would suggest that you consider. Oops, what happened here? Huh. Huh. I am having a hard time finding my way back to the webinar. Just a minute, everyone. Oh, there we are. I had too many screens on my computer. I couldn't figure out where I was. Anyhow, that would be my suggestion. There are times you actually need a doctor. Okay. And I would say this is one of those. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Joyce. Hello, Andrea. Let's see. I'm currently taking Welchol for mold toxicity, but about an hour after taking it, I've been getting a histamine reaction. Why would this be happening? It's causing headaches, diarrhea, burning eyes, and dizziness. So based on what you've said here, and again, I would have a lot more questions if we were talking together. So if this is the only thing you're reacting to, so if you're not having histamine reactions to various foods suddenly or any other things, then I would wonder, have you developed an allergy to Welchol? All right. So keep in mind, anything that you are able to tolerate at one time, it is possible with repeated use, if you have a propensity to be allergic to something, that you actually might become allergic to it. Okay. Now, if, on the other hand, you're starting to see it's not only Welchol that you're getting histamine reactions to, but you're getting histamine reactions to all kinds of other things, food-wise, medicine-wise, etc., then you need to start wondering about something called mast cell activation syndrome. All right. So mast cells, everyone, are cells that we used to think were predominantly just involved in allergic reactions. We now know, though, that they're involved in a lot more than allergic reactions. So mast cells are where histamines are made. If you're allergic to something, antibodies called IgE antibodies attach to that thing, and then they attach to the mast cells, and it causes the mast cells to degranulate or release all of their histamines, all right? We now know that chronic infections like Borrelia, Bartonella, Babesia, chronic yeast infections, mold toxicity, turn those mast cells on too, and make them more easily degranulate and release their histamines, all right? In addition, mold toxicity can do that too. And so it could be that just the accumulated time of having these problems in you has eventually turned your mast cells on too much and you're starting to react. Mast cell activation usually doesn't mean you're reacting to one thing, all right? So if you're predominantly just starting to react to your well call, you have to wonder, have you developed an allergy to it? That could have developed over time, okay? All right. For information about mast cell activation and steps you can take with that, to figure out if you have it, and then also what things you can take to help quiet it, take a look at an article I have on that, and I'm just trying to get there for you. So you can find my mast cell activation article in the immune system section. And this is the article here called Mast Cell Activation Syndrome and Lyme. Okay, take a look at that for some added guidance for you. All right, all right. Good luck. Good luck to you, Andrea. Hello, Bettina. What strains of tick-borne illness might mimic ALS? So ALS, everyone, which is also known as amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or Lou Gehrig's disease, involves basically deterioration of what are called the dorsal nuclei in your back, okay? And that can eventually lead to loss of nerve function, either in your arms or your legs, or your ability to breathe, or everywhere, basically. The infections that have been related to that are Bartonella and Lyme, which is Borrelia, okay? And in somebody that has ALS, and it is worthwhile to test for both Bartonella and Lyme, and sometimes just giving a trial of antibiotics, see if it's going to make a difference. It's a very hard condition to treat, even if it is tick-borne infections causing it. People also get ALS and they don't have tick-borne infections that cause it, okay? But of the tick-borne infections, those that have been related to it are Bartonella and Borrelia, all right? All right. Good luck, Bettina. All right. Hello, Katie. Let's see. How often do antibiotic protocols not work to get someone in remission? If someone has Lyme, Bart, and Babesia, how long is the expected treatment usually? All right. So if you get started on antibiotics within the first month of your tick bite, the cure rate, and I'm using the word cure, is 85%, all right, roughly 85%. Studies tell us that 15 to 20% of people that got their 1 month or so of doxycycline after their acute tick bite go on to develop chronic problems, all right? So then in that 15%, in my experience, roughly 80 to 85% we can get either cured or into remission. And there still is a subset of about 15% of that 15% that fail their 1 month of antibiotics that we just haven't found a way, unfortunately. In terms, so if you're being treated, generally what I tell my patients is that they have about an 80 to 85% chance of getting improvement or getting all the way well. Keep in mind, even if you do get a lot of improvement or get that sometimes because of having had the infection, there can be permanent injury from having had the infection as well too, okay? And there seems to be about 15% or so of people that even if we put them on years of antibiotics, we just cannot make a difference. And we don't know why, okay? There's a lot of this illness that we don't know why, unfortunately. All right, so in terms of how long does it generally take? For about 80 to 85% of people with Babesia, you can get rid of Babesia in about 5 months. For about 80 to 85% of people with Bartonella, you can get rid of that within about 6 months. Then there are those 15% that becomes a chronic, ongoing infection that takes sometimes years to get rid of, okay? For Borrelia, which is Lyme, generally you're talking a year to 2 years of treatment to get well, all right? And that observation on my part is backed by a study done by LymeDisease.org, which is based out of California. They have a project called My Lyme Data, where they enroll people to have information gathered about them, and then they periodically will query the group with certain questions to get answered. Okay, so I think 3 or 4 years ago now, their project was looking at what did it take to get you well. All right, and so it looked at, did people use alternative medicine, et cetera. It looked at everything, and what was shown, the few things that were shown is number one, being on prescription antibiotics. All right, now the trouble in the study, they didn't ask about being on herbal antibiotics, okay, but so being on antibiotics, and I would say I would be even more liberal than what the study looked at. I would say antibiotics, herbal, or prescriptions, but being on something that kills your germs, all right? Number two, being on them for a year or longer, right? And then number three, working with a Lyme literate medical doctor that can help steer you through the morass of this whole thing, all right? Those are the 3 things that they found in their study, all right? So yeah, a year or more on Lyme, and then for Bartonella, about 6 months for 85% of people or so, and for Babesia, about 5 months for 85% of people or so, okay? With the Bartonella and Babesia, generally if a treatment that you're on is working, you should start seeing some improvement in those Lyme or Bartonella symptoms by about 2 months. And if not, then you need to consider changing those antimicrobial regimens, okay? All right, hold on here. My light is getting a bit weird here. Just a minute, I gotta do an adjustment. Make it a little bit better. There we go. All right, good. All right, so anyhow, I hope that answers your question for you, okay? Good luck to you. Hello, Melanie. Can you take curcumin without a gallbladder? Absolutely. I see no problem doing that. Good luck to you. Hello, Jay. Does Plaquenil concentrate in fatty tissues in the brain like minocycline? How long does it take to leave the system? That's a good question. So yeah, Plaquenil is fat soluble too, and it can take a while. I'm going to double check on that one for you just a minute. And Plaquenil also can lead to some neuropathy issues in some people as well too, okay? So what I'm looking up, I'm just pulling up my drug directory here, and I'm looking at something called a half-life. A half-life means how long does it take for you to get half of something out of you, basically, okay? All right, so let's see here, Plaquenil. Yeah. So the half-life, the amount of time it takes for half of this to get out of you is about 40 to 50 days on Plaquenil. All right. And it takes, and the way that pharmacy dynamics work and drug dynamics work, is it takes 4 half-lives for something to be completely out of you. All right. So we're talking about 160 to 200 days, unfortunately. Generally, though, I find that if people are having side effects of Plaquenil, neurologic side effects of Plaquenil, that usually within about a month, even though some of it may still be in you, that getting at least half of it out over that course of that month or a little under half of it out can make a big difference for people. Okay? All right. Good luck. Hello, Kay. Let's see. I also have insomnia, but swear when I take curcumin and increase in symptoms, die off, pain, inflammation, brain fog. Any suggestions? I try to use products to help detox. Thanks. Huh. All right. So it shouldn't be worsening your symptoms, and which means you may be having some type of reaction to the curcumin. All right. I would consider not use, try to go without that, and instead look at using another herbal medication, which is called quercetin. So quercetin is a bioflavonoid chemical that has 2 benefits for us in treating chronic Lyme disease. Number one, it's a kinase inhibitor and it blocks kinase enzymes that help produce cytokines. Okay. So it limits cytokine production. Number two, it's a mast cell stabilizer. So in people that have mast cell activation syndrome, it actually makes those mast cells less agitated and they don't tend to release as much histamines as easily. Okay. All right. Thanks for that question. Good luck to you, Kay. Oh, the dosing on quercetin is it comes as a 250 milligram pill. I like using a product by Thorne called curcumin phytosome. And I usually have people take 500 milligrams, which is 2 pills, 3 times a day on that. All right. See if you're able to tolerate that better than the curcumin. Good luck. Hello, Vivian. Is methylene blue safe for children? Daughter is 12 years old. Um, in general, I would say yes, but I don't know enough about your daughter's health to say if it's good for her. All right. So anyhow, so I would say in general, yes. Okay. All right. Good luck. Hello again, Kay. Let's see. I also have insomnia, but swear. Oh, we already answered that one. I think it was written twice. Let me get rid of that there. Hello, Katie. I noticed in your book it said the BART protocol should get you into remission in 4 to 6 months. What percent of people does that work for? After 6 months, should you switch to another antibiotics? So I partly answered that already, which is probably for about 80, 85% of people that will work. Okay. But if you still are having a lot of Bartonella symptoms after 6 months, um, and you're not making progress, I would consider changing to a different herbal regimen. And what that could be, and I don't think I had that in the book. Since I published that book, I have found benefit in using the combination of Japanese knotweed and cryptolepis as an alternative herbal way of going after Bartonella. Both knotweed and cryptolepis will treat growing Bartonella as well as persisting Bartonella. The dosing I use for Bartonella with those is I try to get up to, I started a quarter teaspoon 3 times a day of the Japanese knotweed, and then I try to go to 1/2 teaspoon 3 times a day as tolerated. And then with the cryptolepis, I tend not to use my Babesia doses on cryptolepis. I tend to go, my Babesia doses would be a teaspoon 3 times a day, But for Bartonella, I have found benefit in doing a half a teaspoon 3 times a day on that. Okay, so essentially, if you're trying to work up both your Japanese knotweed and cryptolepis to half teaspoon 3 times a day. All right. Good luck to you, Katie. Hello, Susan. My daughter has been in treatment for 10 years with various LMDs. Once brief remission 8 years ago, but only regression since, mostly bedridden. Hot is going to help regain remission. Let's see, I'm not quite sure I'm understanding the question here. Let me see if there's, oh, there's a second part, hold on. Sorry, heavy antibiotics, numerous usual co-infections, herbs, stems, given as well as allopathic bone marrow treatment. Susan, I'm not seeing another part of your question here, so I can't answer it. Sorry about that. Hello, let's see here. Glenna, hi. Let's see, hi, Dr. Ross. Thank you for helping those of us with Lyme-related illnesses. You're welcome. When I take curcumin, find out I have musculoskeletal pain, which has always been a symptom with my Lyme and co-infections. Do you think it is amping my immune system up when I'm having die-off? It happens after one dose. If so, is this something I'll need to work through or possibly improve with time? So, there's a rule of thumb I have in medicine. Although what you're describing is not something I would call common with curcumin. My rule is anything can happen to anyone with anything. All right. I think you're having an atypical side effect, and I doubt if it's something you just tough out and it's going to get better. So as I just answered a few minutes ago, in place of doing curcumin in a situation like this, what I would direct you to take a look at is see if you can do the quercetin I mentioned. And that is a 250 milligram pill, 2 pills of that 3 times a day. Okay. All right. Hold on just a minute, everyone. I swallowed down the wrong hatch there, just a minute. There's only a small drop of water there. Anyhow, I hope that gives you some information to help you there. Okay. Good luck to you. All right, everyone. That's it for me for tonight. I'll be back here again with you next week after the Labor Day weekend, and well after the Labor Day weekend. I hope everyone is able to enjoy somewhat the Labor Day weekend coming up, even though there's Lyme disease present and all that. So keep an eye out in your email tomorrow morning, somewhere between 9 to 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, Austin, Texas time. I will be sending out an email announcing that the video is ready to be viewed, and also it'll have links to sign up for the September series that will begin next Thursday. All right. So yeah. The other thing is, if you're finding benefit from these webinars, share what we're doing here with others. Send the emails on. Send the emails to other people so they know what we're doing and they might join us. Okay. All right. I appreciate that. Good night, everyone, and have a great weekend.